How on earth does a global superpower find itself backed into a corner, forced to go begging its biggest rivals for help? It sounds impossible, right? But it's happening right now in a series of deals that were, until recently, completely unthinkable.
You know, there's this old saying in geopolitics that you can't be an empire and a debtor. For the better part of a century, the United States looked like the one massive exception to that rule. They could print the money, and the world would take it. They could sanction their enemies, and the world would fall in line. But that's changing. The ground is shifting under our feet. And that 80-year exception, well, it's starting to look like it's about to expire.
And this, right here, this is the core of it, the great irony. The United States is actively waging an economic war against the exact same two countries it desperately needs to keep its own system from falling apart. It's a strategic contradiction that is just mind-boggling when you think about it. So, let's dive into the first part of this story, because I want to be clear. What we're about to look at isn't some brilliant 4D chess move. When a superpower starts begging its enemies for help, it's not a sign of strength. It's more like a liquidation sale.
We're going to break down two absolutely critical deals that really pull back the curtain on what's happening. The first is a desperate scramble for oil from Venezuela. The second is an even more desperate need for China to buy its debt. And let me tell you, if either one of these deals goes south, the consequences could be catastrophic.
All right, let's start in Caracas, Venezuela. This is our first case study, and what we're seeing is a complete 180-degree diplomatic reversal that can only be described as a total humiliation for Washington.
I mean, just look at this timeline. It's wild. Not long ago, in 2020, the U.S. literally put a $15 million bounty on President Maduro's head. They froze the country's assets. The stated goal was to bring down his government and get control of the world's largest oil reserves. Fast forward to today? Well, now they're quietly handing out waivers to oil companies and offering debt relief, basically begging him to start pumping that oil again. It's a stunning U-turn.
So what happened? Simple. Washington made a massive, catastrophic miscalculation. They thought their sanctions would bring Venezuela to its knees. But here's the thing, the world is thirsty for energy. So countries like China and India just stepped in and kept buying Venezuelan oil, paying for it in other currencies, like the Chinese yuan. And in doing that, they accidentally created a brand new, non-dollar oil market. This was a direct shot at the heart of the petrodollar system, and it was the first major crack in the foundation of American economic power.
Now you might be thinking, doesn't the US produce tons of its own oil? And you'd be right, it does. But here's the crucial technical detail. It produces the wrong kind of oil. It's called light, sweet crude. The problem is, those massive multi-billion-dollar refineries on the Gulf Coast, they were built decades ago to process heavy, sour crude, exactly the kind that Venezuela has more of than anyone else. Without it, those refineries can't operate efficiently, and that threatens the entire American energy supply chain. They are literally built for the wrong oil.
So let's just call this what it is. This isn't some clever diplomatic maneuver. It's a surrender. It's proof that when push comes to shove, the United States needs the resources from the Global South way more than the Global South needs America's permission to sell them.
But look, needing oil from a rival is one thing. That's embarrassing. This next problem, the one with US debt, this is genuinely terrifying. Because while American diplomats are in Caracas begging for oil, back in Washington, the Treasury is begging for cash.
Just try to wrap your head around this number. $3 trillion. That is the staggering amount of new debt the US government needs to sell this year. Not to build new things, not for grand projects, but just to keep the lights on. The government spends trillions more than it takes in from taxes, and that massive hole can only be filled by selling IOUs to the rest of the world.
Now for decades, this was easy. The whole world was lining up to buy American debt. But look at the picture today. Japan, the biggest foreign buyer, they're actually selling US bonds now to prop up their own currency. Europe, their economy is basically stagnant. US banks, they are already stuffed to the gills with government debt. So when you look around, who's left? There's really only one country on the entire planet with pockets deep enough to fill that $3 trillion hole: China.
This quote just nails the absolute absurdity of the situation. Publicly, you've got politicians on TV yelling about a trade war and confronting China. But behind the scenes, you have Treasury officials making phone calls to Beijing, basically pleading, please, not only do we need you to not sell our bonds, we need you to buy more. It's simple, really. You just can't wage war on your own banker.
So let's put these two stories together. You've got the oil surrender in Venezuela, and you have this incredible debt trap with China.
When you see them side by side, you start to get the full picture. The very foundation of American economic power is cracking.
See, for more than 50 years, U.S. dominance has been held up by two giant pillars. Pillar number one, the petrodollar. This was the deal that basically forced every country to buy and hold U.S. dollars to trade for energy. Pillar number two, the Treasury bond. This was seen as the safest asset on Earth, the place where every country parked their savings.
But that first pillar? It just got shattered. Venezuela proved that it is now possible to sell your oil, to survive, and to do it completely outside of the US-controlled system. The petrodollar is no longer a monopoly.
And now, China is turning that second pillar into a weapon. By becoming the lender of last resort, they have flipped the script. America's debt, once its greatest strength, is now its single most critical vulnerability. A U.S. Treasury bond is no longer just a safe asset, it's a political bargaining chip.
And you better believe the rest of the world is taking notes. The moment the US froze Russia's dollar reserves, a switch flipped. It was a wake-up call. It showed every other country that the dollar isn't just a neutral currency. It can be used as a political leash. So, what are they doing? Nations like the BRICS are building a lifeboat. They're creating brand new systems to trade directly with each other in their own currencies. Oil for rupees, food for yuan. Completely bypassing the US dollar altogether.
Okay, so what does all this high-level geopolitical drama actually mean for you, for me, for regular people? This is where it gets really personal. This is the hidden tax you pay when an empire begins to decline.
Right now, the US government is trapped. It has two possible ways out, and both are devastating. Option A is to default on the debt. That's basically unthinkable. It would vaporize the global financial system overnight. Option B is to inflate the debt away. This means the Federal Reserve just prints trillions of new dollars to pay the bills. This quietly makes the currency worth less and less, and that mountain of debt shrinks along with it. A default is a sudden public heart attack. Inflation is a slow, chronic disease. And if you know anything about history, you know which one politicians always choose. They choose the quiet way out.
And this is the price you pay. This isn't some abstract economic theory. When the government chooses inflation, the cost of keeping the system afloat is passed directly onto you. That $3 trillion hole we talked about, you pay for it every single time you go to the grocery store and notice the prices have jumped again. You pay for it when your heating bill goes up for no reason. And you pay for it as the value of every single dollar you've worked so hard to save just quietly evaporates. It is the hidden, invisible tax of a falling hegemon, and it's a tax on every single one of us. And that really leaves us with this final, pretty unsettling thought. These unthinkable deals we're seeing, they aren't signs of a transition that's about to happen. They're confirmation that the transition has already happened. The world has changed, the headlines just haven't caught up yet.
All right, let's dive into a situation that honestly feels like a real head-scratcher. We're looking at a huge contradiction where global politics and big oil collide, and it's all happening in one country, Venezuela. And here's the paradox right up front. On one hand, you've got official US policy. They have active, pretty tough sanctions against the Venezuelan government. But then on the other hand, look at the US action. A major American company is right there buying Venezuelan oil. So you have to be asking, right? How on earth can both of those things be happening at the same time? It seems totally contradictory. Well, the answer is, well, it's complicated, and it all starts with the oil itself. To really untangle this puzzle, you first have to understand that not all oil is created equal. And Venezuela's biggest resource, it's a very special case. First, let's just appreciate the scale we're talking about here. Venezuela is sitting on the single largest proven oil reserves in the entire world. That's right, number one. We're talking more than Saudi Arabia, more than anyone. But here's the catch, the crucial point. Pretty much all of that massive reserve is what's called heavy crude oil. And that is not the easy stuff. It's super thick, kind of dirty, and it's a real pain to get out of the ground. Plus, to turn it into something useful, like gasoline for your car, it needs a ton of extra and very expensive processing. So you can see the challenges stacking up. It's hard to extract, it's basically like sludge, and it costs a fortune to refine. All of this means Venezuela has always had a tough time getting its most valuable resource out to the global market. And that difficulty? It's a huge piece of this whole puzzle.
So if the oil is so tricky and the country is under sanctions, how in the world is a US company involved at all? The answer is in a very specific, and let me tell you, a very carefully designed financial deal. The American company at the heart of all this is Chevron. Now, despite those sanctions we talked about, Chevron actually has special permits from the US government to operate in Venezuela. It's a strategic move, really, to keep a Western presence there so the country's oil infrastructure doesn't just collapse.
So here's how they make it work, at least on paper. Chevron gets the oil out of the ground and sells it on the market. But, and this is the absolute key to the whole thing, the US State Department controls the money. They dictate exactly where every dollar goes. It's not just a payment to Venezuela. All the money is used only to pay back old debts that Venezuela already owes. The whole point is to make sure the funds never ever land directly in the hands of the Venezuelan government.
Okay, but even with that clever financial firewall in place, the whole situation creates a different kind of problem. It's not about the money, it's about how it looks. This is what people are calling a classic case of bad optics.
And one source puts it really bluntly, quote, "Sanctioning Venezuela and at the same time buying oil from them doesn't look really good." You can see the point, right? It sends a really confusing mixed message to the rest of the world.
And this really gets to the heart of the conflict. On one side, you have the stated policy, the sanctions. And on the other, you have the action on the ground, buying oil. This direct contradiction is what makes the optics of the whole situation, as the source material calls it, so ugly.
And that leaves us with this big final question. In the messy world of global energy and politics, when a country's official policy clashes so publicly with its real-world actions, which one ends up bending? It's a real paradox, and there is no easy answer.